I'm going to discuss the differences, or similarities rather, with Asperger's syndrome and PPD NOS, which is very much supposedly just like Asperger's, and they're related somehow. I'm still in the process of doing research on it, but from what I've read, all the childhood symptoms pretty much overlap with Asperger's, except for the one thing about looking yourself in the mirror and seeing a child when you're an adult. I've never had that issue. I always thought of myself as an adult even when I was a kid. Never looked at myself as a child, even though I was a child. I always was a man. Grew up too fast, I guess. But with PPD, there's a sensitivity to lights and sounds and smells. And the same with Asperger's as well. But with PPD, it's more of a higher functioning form of autism. Asperger's is a little bit more lower functioning, to my understanding, from what I read on the DSM and on Wikipedia. I got diagnosed with Asperger's at 14. And when I was 5 years old, I got diagnosed with mental retardation and a low IQ. But it's not really fair that you rate a child and that way and assume that they're that way just because whatever they score when they're little. What you do when you're a kid shouldn't really count against you. They should really do away with the laws where they assess people. They should wait until the kid is at least 8 to 10 years old before they even bother to do an assessment. 5 is still too young. I was way too young to get assessed, in my opinion. I mean, obviously I'm not mentally retarded. I'm standing right here talking to you. I'm not retarded by any means. I mean, some things I might do are considered abnormal. Yeah, I know that. I'm aware of that. I do it on purpose because that's what I enjoy. It's as simple as that. With PPD also, I guess, you'll have a very strong form of OCD, which I have a very bad habit of being obsessive and compulsive, especially like if I'm in a relationship with a girl and I don't get my way, or the family gets in my way, or whatever happens. I'm the type that obsesses on my partner, and I live, breathe, eat, sleep my partner basically, and that's all that's on my mind 24/7. That was my last girlfriend, same thing. Always on my mind 24/7, always what I thought about and what I want in the relationship, where I want the relationship to go, and the idea of a perfect relationship and how to change things and what's the future going to be like. And I can relate to that 100%. So I could possibly have PPD instead of Asperger's, I don't know. But to me it's all the same either way. The reason why they call it Asperger's is because Hans Asperger, who was a Nazi doctor in the 30s and 40s, experimented on these kids, and these kids turned out to have autism, and they called it Asperger's syndrome because of the way he conditioned them. I forgot what it was that he did to them, or what he gave them, or what he exposed them to, but it caused them to have this condition. That's why it was called Asperger's. And I think they took it out of the book because the guy was a Nazi, and a lot of people hate Nazis. You know, they're in the history book, you can't really erase them. Now it's just called autistic spectrum disorder. And there's a lot of different variants of autism that I notice are missing. There's Willie syndrome, for instance, where a guy was really good on a piano, and he'd play and he could hear the musical notes in his ears before he even played them. And he was an idiot savant, he was a genius. Kind of like the Rain Man, except he had social deficits, but he was brilliant with music. And it's amazing if you look at these people and you see what they're capable of. They're very gifted. Unfortunately, you know, society puts them out as outcasts and labels them as retarded. I mean, yeah, they might not have the social functions that you and I might have, the ability to pay bills and adapt to a normal lifestyle, but they have gifts. If somebody could help them with their gifts and put it out there, there could be a lot more awareness and a lot more art out there. I mean, Einstein, he had autism. I think in particular he had Asperger's, but I don't know for certain. He was around before Asperger's existed, so he was like terrible with math, but he was good with other, like textbook math he was bad with, but scientific math he was really good with. Like me, I'm horrible with math. Horrible. Fucking horrible. I'm only good with my multiplication, my subtraction, some short division in my head. Otherwise, I gotta use a calculator. I can't do math, and I've always hated math, but all my other Asperger friends, they love math. But not me. I've hated math. That's my least favorite subject. I like English more than I like math. My Asperger friends hate English, so I'm the odd duck there. Now, the Rain Man, if you remember, he was great with numbers. Dustin Hoffman played Raymond Babbitt in The Rain Man. And he was a genius. I don't want to spoil it for those of you that have not seen the movie. It's an old movie. It came out 35 years ago almost. I recommend you go see it because it'll teach you a lot of things about autistic people and how they act. I had some similarities to him when I was a little kid, but I grew out of them. But I could relate to that, and people nicknamed me the Rain Man just because I remembered facts and details. And it's an insult that they would say that, but I can also appreciate it because the Rain Man was pretty fucking cool, honestly. And Dustin Hoffman gave an A+ performance. You need to see this movie if you haven't seen it. Tom Cruise is also in it as his younger brother. It's a very good movie. They don't make movies like that anymore. Yeah, but being an idiot savant, you're great with numbers. You're great with a certain set of skills. You're just not great with other things. Another movie that had Asperger's in it was The Accountant with Ben Affleck, where he plays an assassin and a contractor. Supposedly he had Asperger's, and for the life of me, I cannot figure out how or why his character had it. Because if you look at his character in the movie, I don't see any Asperger's in there whatsoever. Not at all. Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, if you guys see it, please let me know and share with me your thoughts on that. Because it says right there, a man with Asperger's in the synopsis of the movie. But I don't see it. He's a mean killing machine in that movie. Kills a hell of a lot of people in there. He's like an assassin. But I still don't see the Asperger's in him. And also, the girl with the dragon tattoo, Liz Salamander. I think that's her name. I'm drawing a blank right now, so forgive me. The actress's name is... I have it on the tip of my tongue. Rooney Mara. She played in the remake that came out with Daniel Craig about 11 years ago. Good movie. Her character had Asperger's in the movie. She was a computer hacker, computer genius who was on Social Security in Europe, I think in the Netherlands or something. And she was a really smart girl. She was textbook smart, but socially very, very awkward. That's also another good movie you want to see. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a family movie, not like Rain Man, but it's educational. It's really good, and the books are good too. There's just not enough. The so-called Autism Awareness is kind of a joke because they don't really go into detail and depth about it. And they fail to tell you that not everybody who has autism is the same. Everybody's different. Everybody's unique. They all have their own set of skills and their own set of traits. Now, there might be some similarities, of course, like with everything else. But they're not the same people and the same individuals. Not every guy with Asperger's is going to love guitars or guns or women like I do, or animals, or music. And the guy who loves video games and mathematics and fancy cars is going to be the opposite of me. So he might have Asperger's too. I'm just giving you an example. Or she might. Or they might. Or whatever. Or NPD. I'm sorry, not NPD. PPD. Pervasive Developmental Disorder. Otherwise non-specified. Hence the term PPD NOS. So I don't know if I should get assessed for it. I kind of wonder because it describes my childhood to a T. I always lined up my action figures, always like in a line. Whereas normal kids, they just scatter their toys everywhere. Mine were all lined up so neatly. And it used to make my mom baffled. But every time I went to the grocery store, I had to always buy a toy. I loved toys. Toys. Action figures in particular. Every time I went to Walmart, I have to buy an action figure. In the 90s, I tell you, toys were expensive. For an action figure, it was between $10 to $20. which even to this day, it still is kind of the same price. It hasn't really gone up by much. It's still very expensive. They even have some action figures that are even like 40 bucks. I don't play with action figures anymore, but I still appreciate them. I still look at them occasionally because, you know, I appreciate the memory of my childhood. We used to always go to KB Toys. Man, I wish I could be a kid again. It was fun. I was interested in guns back then too when I was a kid. I had a bunch of squirt guns, super soakers, Nerf. My mom bought me a super soaker. She didn't want me having a Beretta squirt gun because a lot of kids, stupid neighborhood kids would pull their guns out on cops. Then they get shot for it, even if it was like a yellow squirt gun. It's crazy. At night, you know, cops can't see, so what are they supposed to do? And I knew better than to draw on a cop or a police officer. I'd have to be pretty fucking stupid to do that, even as a child. The kids just weren't educated enough is what it was. That's why they'd end up getting shot. A lot of police-related killings on children were very common back in my time. Not really common anymore because kids are a lot smarter now. And I used to have a super soaker. I don't think they make these things anymore. And the water used to shoot out very far out, I remember. At least 6 feet out, if I remember correctly. If I could find one again, I think I would buy one because I remember my childhood and it's fun, you know, to remember that. And if I had children of my own, I would buy them the same thing too. What are your guys' thoughts on PPD versus Asperger's? I really want to hear them. Let me know.